Welcome back to the Jon Krawczynski Show. He's Jon Krawczynski from The Athletic and TalkNorth.com. I'm Jim Suhan from TalkNorth.com and the Star Tribune. This is our basketball show at TalkNorth.com. Whenever you find a show you like at our network, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's the easiest way for you to listen, and we do appreciate it. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studio, and we're presented by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. Welcome back to Great Clips, another great one of our sponsors, as well as the OG's TSR Injury Law. Let's get right to it. Karl-Anthony Towns is in the finals, and Karl-Anthony Towns is in the finals against another very unconventional center. We might see a finals with two guys who are 7 foot shooting 25-foot shots, maybe not venturing into the paint on offense all that often. It's going to be fascinating. I don't know that Cat and Wemby are even going to cover each other a little bit in this series.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to watch that way, Jim, because you're right. Like, you would look at this and say, okay, it's Cat versus Wemby on both ends. And, a 7-footer against a 7'6" guy, go at it. But I do think that you will see Karl-Anthony Towns guarded a lot by Stephon Castle or a smaller player on the Spurs. And that because Karl will try to drag Wemby out of the paint. And then on the other end, you will see maybe Josh Hart, maybe OG Anunoby, maybe a bunch of other guys on Wemby, because it does seem like if there is a blueprint to having even a modicum of success against Wembanyama, a lot of teams have done it with smaller, kind of burly dudes that can get physical with them. Even the Wolves with Julius Randle, who's not small, but smaller than a center, is probably who had the most success against Wemby. So how they kind of go about sort of the chess match of trying to make the other side uncomfortable is going to be key. I do think, Jim, that we've seen Karl not shoot as many threes since he's been with the Knicks. I think this is a series where he's going to have to put up 6, 7 in a game and really try to be a threat from out there, because Wemby's going to be lurking near the paint, and that's going to be a lot harder to get things done around the rim. And so the Knicks are going to have to shoot the ball really well from the perimeter, which they can do to have success in this series.
Everything about Wemby is fascinating. I'm also fascinated by Cat's transformation into a point center. And, he basically, if I understand the story correctly, he went to Mike Brown and said, hey, what if when I'm out there, at the top of the key, what if I kind of run the offense? What if we use my passing skills? And it's worked brilliantly. The Knicks are on an incredible run. Is this kind of thing that just happens organically, or did either previous Knicks coaches or Wolves coaches not see that in him and use him in a way that ended up being very productive?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this, certainly when he was in Minnesota, he was incredibly productive. He was just a different kind of player. And I do think one of the underlooked sort of assessments or analysis of Cat's game is how adaptable he has been. I mean, you look at, he comes in as the number 1 overall pick, is a high scoring, high shooting player, but then Jimmy Butler comes in and he kind of takes a side seat to Jimmy. Anthony Edwards comes in. He takes, he shares the spotlight with him. Rudy Gobert comes in and he really switches positions entirely and plays a different way to accommodate Rudy. And now I do think that, there was a meeting of the minds with Mike Brown and the Knicks this season, because you heard early on in the year that Karl-Anthony Towns and Mike Brown were having a hard time sort of finding a symmetry and how do we get on the same page and figure out how to work together. And ultimately, Cat has molded his game to fit this sort of free-flowing but pass-heavy offense and motion-heavy offense. And one of the ways he does that is by using his passing skills. Now, the critical key to that, Jim, is that Karl has always been a good passer, but he has to be a more precise passer. I mean, we saw a lot of times in Minnesota, he could make real plays, but then, twice a game, he'd throw it over his head and it would go into the second row or something like that. And so I think that he is playing a much more disciplined, under control style of offense in this system. And so he's making really good reads, but he's also making very simple reads and simple plays. And so those are not producing the turnovers that can hurt you in a way that they were earlier in his career. He's just got new perspective and new patience, and I think that's really helping the Knicks out and helping his game quite a lot.
I want to bring something up with you. You know Cat well, and obviously you had a great relationship with him. I was around him a lot. I had the occasional chat with him. I always found him to be very engaging and honest and fun to talk to. I also know other journalists, other people in town, other members of the Wolves organization. I always felt like there was kind of a whisper campaign against Cat. That maybe he was a little phony, that maybe, what we saw when he put on a good show in front of the cameras and everybody else wasn't the way it necessarily was behind the scenes. I found it fascinating because I've covered a lot of people who were like that. They're great in front of the cameras. Then you hear stories that they weren't great in the locker room. They weren't great with the fans, whatever else. I always heard the whisper campaign and I always looked for signs that it might be true. And I never came across any actual evidence that it was true. So I'm just wondering, as someone who knew him well and might have heard the same things, what you think about that whole realm.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that is certainly true, Jim, what you're saying. When you look at his body of work and how it is scrutinized and how it is picked apart and all of those things, he is one of the more, I don't know what the right word is, he's judged quite a bit over throughout his career. And one thing that I think invites that sort of scrutiny and that maybe skepticism or whatever is, it is clear one thing, especially when he was here and earlier on in his career, he is one of those players who, when he does interviews, and the way that he communicates, sometimes it comes across as if he's saying what he thinks you want him to say versus whatever he actually means and feels. And so the thing that we talk about with Anthony Edwards all the time is just how genuine he is and how real he is in front of a camera, off camera, all of those things. And I do think that there were times here in Minnesota where he felt a pressure to be the face of the franchise, and especially in times where the Timberwolves were really struggling, and he felt an obligation to try to project an image that maybe wasn't always 100% what he was really feeling behind the scenes, what everyone was experiencing. And so it didn't always come off as real. And so people would look at that and say, come on, Cat, like, just tell me what you mean. Tell me what you feel. And so what I always looked at, though, is I think people watched him do that and watched him want to be liked and want to be accepted and looked at that as a bad thing. I always looked at that as an endearing thing. And as I kind of processed him at his stage of his life when he's 20 or 21 or 22 years old, he's trying to figure out who he is in this league as a person, all of the things. And so he was searching for the voice, the means of communication, the way to connect with everyone, and he wanted to be everybody's friend. And there's this sort of romanticism of some athletes of like the asshole athlete, and like, yeah, it's my way or the highway, and this is what I'm going to do, and the Kobe's and the Jordans, and even
Tiger.
Ant a little bit, yeah, Tiger, and so Cat was not that, and he never has been that. He has been one who wants to be accepted, who wants to be part of a family, who wants to kind of just have everyone look to him and be like, yeah, that's my guy. And sometimes maybe it felt like he was trying a little too hard for that acceptance and for that kind of role. And so I just thought, I always looked at it as, I knew underneath it all what his intentions were, and I knew that he has a good heart, that he treats people the right way, that he's helped a lot of people in this community and like all of those things. But there was a earlier on in his career, there was a bit of a thirst for just acceptance. And sometimes that can come off as, as thirsty, as kind of like, just a quality of this, like, hey, you are a superstar athlete. Who cares what people think about you? But that's easier said than done when you're getting, arrows thrown at you from every which way, and even from inside your own organization at times. Like, he came up at a very volatile time in the Timberwolves history with all sorts of turnover, with the Jimmy Butler Tibbs stuff, with everything that went on. He was not raised in an environment that was conducive to just kind of linear growth and maturity and all of those things. He was put on the defensive pretty quick. And so I just think that he did his best to try to get through all of those things and connect. And sometimes it came off as a little bit disingenuous or just as like calculated, polished, all of those words, and not real. But I think, and we saw it in New York as well. Like, he got a lot of flack from Knicks fans last year when, for some of the things that he said or the way that he said them. And I think that some people just had a harder time of looking past the packaging to what was underneath it. And, as someone who was there from day one, I just kind of was always a lot closer to the situation and just wanted to give him the room to figure things out as a young person always needs. And so I was probably a little more patient with some of that stuff than maybe some other people were. And that was outside and inside the organization. He definitely had to deal with some of that. And it seems like this year he is finding in year 12 or 11, maybe a little bit more of a sense of grounding and just who he is as a player, just settling in. He's getting, he's engaged to be married, all of those things. He's just grown up a lot, and it's coinciding with great success on the court now.
Well, you just needed to go to a smaller market and deal with less pressure.
That's right. That's exactly it. This bubble in Minneapolis will eat you alive if you're not careful.
Local media is vicious. Absolutely. Reminder, watch the Jon Krawczynski Show on YouTube and follow the Jon Krawczynski Show on Instagram and Facebook. And you'll see each episode is released. Check out all the other great shows at TalkNorth.com. We also want to remind you we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services. Yes, we all love summer, but if your air conditioner's acting more like an oven than a fridge, now's the time to trade in and trade up with an additional $500 off on top of our summer sale pricing on a new cooling system from Aquarius. Enjoy a cool, comfy home all summer long. Schedule your free estimate today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
And here's John for Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
Also want to welcome back great sponsor, Great Clips.
Life comes with a lot of things to remember, and Great Clips doesn't think your haircut should be one of them. That's why I use Clip Notes to save my haircut details, so no matter which stylist I see or Great Clip salon I visit, it's easy to feel like the best version of me. So do yourself a favor, say goodbye to guesswork, and hello to a great haircut every time. Download the app today. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
Let's get back to I do think this is a fascinating finals. I can't wait to watch it. The OKC Spurs conference finals were great. The playoffs have been great. They've been just fabulous. But for now, let's get to some Wolves possibilities. As the trade rumors start to percolate, where's your head? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is possible?
Yeah, I think what I think is going to happen is I do think there's going to be some sort of fairly significant roster change so that the starting lineup on opening night next season is not going to be the same starting lineup that finished this season. Now, what I will say is that as of right now, we are in sort of this dormant period of trade talks for the league, everyone kind of like sits through the NBA finals. And once the finals are over, then the draft is right around the corner. And that's when you really see a lot of conversations really pick up in intensity and in kind of real time and good faith negotiations. So right now, just a complete hypothetical, for instance, if the Wolves were talking to the Bucks about Giannis Antetokounmpo right now, I would expect that John Horst and the Bucks are saying, yeah, we'll do Giannis for Anthony Edwards. Or, Tim Connolly was saying, yeah, we'll take Giannis off your hands for Julius Randle in the first round pick, like that kind of thing. And so like, it's just not going to really get into the nitty gritty of deal making until we get past the finals. Now, if I were to handicap all of the possibilities out there, I do think that Giannis is a really hard one to pull off. I think Kyrie Irving is a more realistic possibility. You are hearing some other names start to just get kind of thrown around the rumor mill. You're hearing Kawhi Leonard. You're hearing maybe a little bit of Jalen Suggs, a few other names. And so a lot of what's going on right now, I think, is just sort of fact finding, a little bit of due diligence to see what is achievable and what isn't. And once these finals are over, then you will see them kind of go into, all right, let's really kind of target a couple of guys and see what we can pull off. And then we're going into the draft, or draft night, would be probably a good target time for some of these deals to come to fruition. But I do think that whether it's at the end of June, whether it's early July in free agency with a few other trades and moves, like I think there will be a bigger name, or like at least a more significant move that happens. Like, okay, like next year is going to look different from a personnel around Anthony Edwards type of a situation.
Kawhi Leonard's been a great player. Man, I just don't think you can take that risk, do you?
I mean, so there's a lot. Yeah, I think here's the problem, Jim, with where the Wolves are at right now, is that given what assets they have to trade, given their motivation to get some deal done, every player that you go after is going to have some sort of warts you got to figure out. And you got to maybe try to decide if you can live with or not. Kawhi would be one where you'd be really concerned. Does he want to play in Minnesota? My guess is no. And so that would be a big thing. And his injury history and like all of the weirdness around him that you have to sort of stomach. That said, he's an incredible player. He'd be an unbelievable fit with Anthony Edwards, but there are just so many things you'd have to look at with bringing Kawhi Leonard in that, yeah, I would be reticent to do it. I wouldn't completely close the door on it, but I'd have to get a lot of questions answered before I went ahead with Kawhi Leonard. Same with like Kyrie Irving has his injury issues. I think Anthony Davis, if I were the Timberwolves, I'd look at him a little bit and say, hey, is this a possibility to maybe buy a little lower on an extremely talented guy? But guess what? He's got injury issues and things that you'd have to deal with. Giannis is coming off of injuries, is getting a little older, but I'm not worried about any of his health issues, actually. I'm just concerned about the price you'd have to pay to get him. And so, generally speaking, I don't know that there are many options out there right now where you say, okay, if you go get this guy, there are very few concerns about him coming in. Everyone that you would go to acquire is probably going to be like, yeah, this is really promising. Like this could really fit well, but it also is a little bit risky to bring this person in as well. So all of these things are dice rolls. It's just, I think you have to determine which of the concerns are deal breakers for you and which ones are like, you know what, we'll give a shot at it. Ja Morant is another one. Like if other things don't go well for the Wolves this offseason and they don't get, maybe one of their top priorities could I see them circling back and saying, well, let's go see if you can buy low on Ja Morant? Yeah, maybe. Then you got to deal with all of his stuff that comes in. So this is just going to be the nature of it. And whatever deals get done, there's going to be a lot of excitement, I think, initially of, we got rid of player X or player Y, and so this is great. And then you're bringing in this new shiny toy. That's awesome. But then there's also going to be some trepidation, like, is this the right thing to do? Or, and so that's what podcasts are for. We get to wring our hands and talk about all this, but I just don't see any sort of silver bullet out there that is, hey, you go get this guy for this price and you're set and you don't have any worries about it.
One name you didn't mention, I've seen somebody float, Zion Williamson. To me, I don't know. I don't know if he's a fit. I don't know if I trust his health. I don't know. What do you think about that possibility?
Yeah, so with Zion, Jace Frederick from the Pioneer Press brings him up a lot to his credit. And one of the reasons is because every time Zion Williamson plays the Timberwolves, he absolutely kicks their ass.
Destroys
and you're like, this is the best player in the league. Like, this is who you see. But he's another buy low candidate, I think, and you could make the argument, and I think there is a good argument of, okay, if you move Julius Randle for Zion and you put him next to Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels, then you would say, hey, any sort of defensive concerns that we have about Zion Williamson are mitigated because of the guys that we have around him. And if you could get him into a change of scenery where he kind of grows up a little bit from a maturity standpoint and he's able to stay healthy. Let's also say that the Timberwolves athletic training staff is quickly becoming known as one that does really well in keeping guys healthy. I mean, of course, they had the Ant injury and the Dante injury in this postseason, but in general, over the last several years, they've done a very good job of limiting games lost to injury. And so you bring Zion in here with the Mayo Clinic modalities, with everything, and you say, hey, can we sort of tap into something from a health perspective that the New Orleans Pelicans, who I think don't have a whole lot of resources at their disposal, weren't able to do. That's a possibility. And if you can, these are all huge ifs, but if you could get him healthy and get him focused, he is an incredible talent. And, you think of what he could do as a passer, as a scorer, as just a bull in a china closet type of a player. When he was at his best with New Orleans, he's a top 10 player in the league or top 12. Like, that's how good he is. But obviously the huge issue with that is it comes so rarely. And so, if you could get Zion without giving up Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert, then I would absolutely consider it, because there are things here that could bring out the best in him. But again, another one that would be a tremendous gamble. Is he going to stay in shape? Is he going to want to live in Minnesota? Is he going to stay healthy? Is he going to do all the things that need to be done at this stage of his career to maximize his potential? But it is I think it's probably one of the most volatile but potentially rewarding lottery tickets. Like, if you hit all 5 numbers on that ticket, man, you would be a real difficult team to deal with. It's just like the odds of that happening are probably a little small.
Let's get to more talk on the finals, and we'll talk about Rick Adelman's death as well. First, let's thank TSR Injury Law, 612 TSR Time, 612 TSR Time. We got to get Steve Terry back on the show here soon. We haven't talked to him in a little while, and I'm really interested in his take on all this, because not only is he a super fan, he also has the connections in the organization. Sometimes he tells us stuff, but what you need to know is if you're ever injured, you call 612 TSR Time. They're good people. They'll take good care of you. It's that simple. 612 TSR Time. Now here's John for True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. Go to truevision.com to set up your free consultation. Get in there. go through all of the steps that they take you through. It's an exhaustive but a very, very intelligent and educating process about all of the vision correction options that are available to you. I had LASIK surgery with True Vision about 2 years ago now. And it's been just an incredible thing for my life. I don't have to deal with the hassles of glasses and contacts anymore. I see clearly, both up close and far away. And if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you can see that no glasses. And so I don't have to worry about constantly, are these glasses fashionable, or am I in the right style now? Is my prescription up to date? Do I have to go back and get another batch of daily contacts? Like, all of that hassle is gone, and my life is so much easier because I went to True Vision in Bloomington. So go to truevision.com, set up your consultation, tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you, and get on with living your best life after LASIK surgery at True Vision.
We also want to thank sglambchops.com. sglambchops.com also sponsors the Twitter question at the end of this show.
That's right. If you go to sglambchops.com and use the promo code JONK20, you get 20% off anything that you get at Lamb Chops, and you can get a lot at Lamb Chops. They have hoodies, they have hats, they have pants, they have shorts, t-shirts, they have sweaters. There are all sorts of different things for you. It's all incredibly comfortable. It's all stylish, and it's all super high quality. You know, if you buy something from Lamb Chops, it is going to last you a very long time, and you're going to look good in it the whole time. I always like to say, you can go to Lamb Chops, buy whatever you want. You can wear that out on a Friday night in the North Loop and feel like you fit right in. You can wear it at a Timberwolves or Lynx game and fit right in, or you can wear it just lounging around the house, watching, on TV and being incredibly comfortable. So go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops.
All right, let's talk about Rick Adelman. He was here for a little while. Great coach, brilliant offensive coach. I found him when he was here to be a little bit aloof. I didn't really get to know him very well. I don't know if you did.
Yeah, I did. I would say I did. But when you talk about working with coaches as we do in the media, certainly he kept you at arm's length a little bit more than some of the other coaches that have come through here. But I always had an incredible amount of respect for him because he was never combative, never belittling, never disrespectful to what job we had to do. He always answered every question and really taught me a lot as a reporter, as a young reporter covering this league on, how do you play winning basketball. But he just wasn't interested at that point in his career. And I really don't think he was ever that guy that was going to have a relationship kind of, deeper than that. But I will tell you, from, he got here towards the end of his coaching career, and it seemed like he was, what you saw from right away was just the impact he had on a team that was completely hapless and turning into actually competitive group. And so I think he deserves a lot of credit for just settling things down and establishing a base level of competency on the court with a team and a roster that was certainly in flux around him. But also, the thing that I just remember most about Rick in his time here was one, kind of early on in his tenure, his wife, Mary Kay, had started to have some health issues with some seizures and things like that. And the times that you saw the humanity from Rick Adelman was every time he was talking to Mary Kay, talking about her. He was this very sort of a kind of crusty, curmudgeonly old coach, but there was always a moment before each game where he would walk out onto the sideline and he would look up into the stands and he would find Mary Kay and he would wave, and his eyes and his face lit up. And it was so humanizing and endearing to watch that. He won his last game, one of his last games here was a milestone. I think it was 1,000 wins. And so he won the game, and then he brought Mary down onto the court. They hugged and kissed. It was this amazing, amazing moment. He had his son David and his son RJ with him on the staff. So there was just like this feeling of, the patriarch and and just a little bit of family here with the Timberwolves, with a team that was underwhelming, I would say, in general, and went through some injuries and things like that. But man, just an incredibly good dude that wasn't interested in like getting the attention on himself or taking any of the credit for things or anything like that. He just showed up and he went about his work and he let the guys play. And he really, I think, was very responsible for just like making the Timberwolves something that wasn't a laughingstock on the court. And that was a bigger job than maybe, some people might understand when he first got here. And so I really, really enjoyed my time with Rick. You could joke with him a little bit. He had a really dry sense of humor. I'm thinking about David right now, his son who coaches at Denver and is just a great young coach. And just all the things that kind of come to mind are just more of the off the court, just interactions with him and stuff. And really one of the great coaches this league has ever seen, before he got to Minnesota. Great success in Portland and Sacramento. Great dude. And really enjoyed, the 4 years or so that he was here working and coaching this team. Thoughts out to the whole family there.
Yes, condolences to the Adelmans. Good stuff there, John. Let's talk about the finals. Wasn't that long ago we thought Oklahoma City might be a dynasty. Now they can't even get back to the finals. Are the Spurs on the cusp of us making the same statements about them, that this might be a 5-10 year run?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's where, I think it's a great thing to talk about right now, because I understand Timberwolves fans right now, and they're looking at Oklahoma City and they're looking at San Antonio and they're looking at how the second round went and saying, man, these teams are so young and they're not going anywhere. We're cooked. Why, what's going to happen for us? Like, we have no chance. And I would just say that everything that you're going to hear everyone say about San Antonio in these finals, whether they win or not, you have heard them say about the Oklahoma City Thunder last year. You heard them say it about the Boston Celtics a couple of years ago when they won it. You heard them say it about the Denver Nuggets when they won it. It's just that there is always this sort of doomerism that settles in after a team wins a title, and you're like, well, they're not going anywhere. Good luck getting past these guys. And it's true, like with Wembanyama, with Castle, with Harper, they have really young dudes that are really, really talented and probably only going to get better. But what we have learned over these last 8 years, there's going to be the 8th straight season where there's a new champion in the NBA. And so what you learn is the season is long and injuries can happen. Guess what? Money issues can come into things when teams win at a high level. Ego gets involved sometimes. Roles, get battled for. Any number of things can happen between this time and this time next year to make it that San Antonio does not repeat. That does not come. It is far more likely that San Antonio does not win again next year, even if they win this year, than it is that they are back in it. Like, that's just what we have learned about the current state of the NBA, the collective bargaining agreement, with injuries and health, with all of the things that are going into it. Now it's going to be harder to tank as well. So I just don't think that the approach is, well, what are we going to do? Poor us. San Antonio is everything and Minnesota doesn't. I think you get back in the fight. I think you figure out, you try to reconfigure the roster. Maybe you add a little more shooting. Maybe you try to add a little more size or something like that, more ball handling. And you say, we're going to put ourselves in a position to be as viable as possible in the playoffs. And then it's a bit of lucky. What if they had Dante DiVincenzo and Ant at full strength? Would they have beaten the Spurs? I don't know. Maybe not, but it would have been a lot more competitive. And so you just got to try to hang in there and stay in the fight and let attrition settle in and figure out and all of that, because it's just so easy and quick to look at the team of the year and just be like, yeah, there's no way. What, why even bother? But that's not what this is all about. It's about finding ways to counteract whatever San Antonio is going to bring, and make it harder on them next season. And I think that's a possible thing. So I expect the Wolves to try to do that. It will be a mountain literally to climb, but I'm just not one of those that's going to be like, yeah, I mean, there's no chance. There's no chance anymore.
Everything you just said is exactly what I've been thinking. And I was actually thinking about writing exactly that column. Is that I know that, the pairing of daunting opponents and Minnesota fatalism leads us down that path, but it's sports. Even if you think the best teams are out of reach, it's your job to compete. It's your job to take a shot at them and see what happens. Sports surprise us all the time, and dynasties hardly ever exist in modern sports because in the salary cap leagues. And they don't even exist in baseball, where there's no salary cap and one team can outspend everybody by $500 million. It just doesn't, it's just not the way sports work.
It isn't. And like, the very nature of sport is to compete.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does, like, it sucks when you lose. Like, and I understand that. I understand why Minnesota sports fans are like, why can't we ever break through? And like, I get that part of it, but I mean, wasn't that fun in the first round of the Denver series? And you have this shorthanded team just like going at the Nuggets and winning and overcoming and getting to the second round. Wasn't that fun in game 4 of the San Antonio series when they even it up and Anthony Edwards doesn't have any knees and he scores 36 points and we're 2-2 going back to San Antonio? Like all of those things are what is hardwired within organizations and within the best players to say, I am not giving in to the flavor of the month. I am not I'm not folding under the fatalism that it's not going to work out. And chances are it won't. But the reason that you get in this is to really try to make it happen. And so, kind of any ideas of, well, take a gap year or two, let this San Antonio thing run out a little bit, and then come back in 3 years and try and make another run. I don't think so, because everyone said, well, what are you going to do with Jokic, man? He's the best player in the league. Like he's just going to keep coming back here. He hasn't been back to the finals since. He hasn't been back to the conference finals since. What are you going to do with Tatum and Brown? Like these guys are so young and they just keep winning. There's just no chance. Well, Jason Tatum got injured. Jaylen Brown is now having a little bit of a power struggle with Tatum, and who knows how that's going to all turn out. What are you going to do with Oklahoma City? Oh my gosh, they have Shea, they have Chet, they have this whole thing set up. They have all these draft picks. Well, Jalen Williams is hurt for a year, and Chet absolutely disappears in a conference finals. Like, these things change like that, and so there's fatalism within the fans because they feel like it's never going to change. But the reason that the best teams overcome and win is because they don't give in to that, and they believe that they can find a way. And so this is all going to be about finding a way. And I'm really excited to see how the Timberwolves try to find a way, because I know that they're not going to fold the tents and just give up. And I don't know if it's going to work or not, but they're going to get creative and try and figure it out. And man, that's going to be just really, really interesting to watch.
No doubt. Let's get to our Twitter question, sponsored by sglambchops.com.
And just a reminder that if you go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off everything that you get at sglambchops.com. And I'm just looking for it right here.
Reminder, you can also see and hear Jon on the Viking Update Show. That, like this show, is done all off-season, all year round. You can hear Alec Lewis on the Alec Lewis Show. Sometimes Alec joins the Viking Update Show as well. We've got 3 great football shows during a fascinating Vikings off-season. Mark Rosen, Don Mitchell, Chin Music, the Roy Smalley, Lavelle E. Neal, myself, Michael Russo, and Anthony Panta on hockey. Check it all out at talknorth.com, and we do appreciate it.
Okay, here's one from Marco. Hi, Jon. My question isn't really about the roster, but with the increase in WNBA salaries, considering that Alex and Mark also own the Lynx, do you think the costs associated with running the Lynx could affect their willingness and ability to spend more on the Wolves in the future? Thanks. It's a good question because certainly the landscape of the WNBA has changed dramatically over the last couple of months with the new collective bargaining agreement, with the new salaries. What I would say, though, is, and I think what players would tell you, is that the reason that they're making more money is because they're bringing in more revenue for the league. And so it kind of balances out a little bit. I think it's still an expensive thing for an ownership group to run, but with the kind of some of the TV deals and things of that nature, there's just more revenue that has been available to all WNBA ownership groups, including Mark Lori and Alex Rodriguez. And so it will not have a direct effect on any resources that are given to the Timberwolves as they look to go forward. They'll manage that as a separate entity with a separate revenue stream that has to have those decisions made independently of what's happening with the Lynx. One reason I did want to ask or bring this question up, though, is, man, it's been super cool to see the Lynx figure out more ways to remain competitive after losing all of their players, in free agency and stuff. And Olivia Miles
she's fantastic.
Unbelievable, like an unbelievable talent that comes in and is just changing everything around there, or at least keeping them afloat. And Cheryl Reeve just keeps on figuring out ways and finding ways to stay relevant and not fall back to the pack. And I just want to give them, a shout out for the way they've started this season after, no Nafisa Collier, losing everyone that they did in free agency, and then just finding another way to reinvent themselves and sit where they do. It's incredible what they're doing over there.
Yeah, they're first place, and Juhas is going to be was the MVP of the EuroLeague. I mean, she's going to come in and have a big impact. Amazing stuff. But Olivia Miles is the story of the season. She's
no question,
an incredible player.
It just makes you wonder, Jim. Is her presence, does that change or affect what Nafisa wants to do over the her future? I don't know, but man, she set it up so she's going to have more freedom to make her own decision. Which she deserves. But if I'm looking around the league and I see this unbelievably big passing point guard who could be feeding me pick and roll buckets for the next 10 years, that would be a hard one to leave behind, is what I would say.
Yeah. You might not find another coach like Cheryl. I know Cheryl can be tough on people, but she's also a great coach, and you're going to win. And Cheryl Reeve in place, a really likable, excellent coaching staff, Olivia Miles getting you the ball, Courtney Williams, a blast to play. I mean, they have a very likable team. That's a fun group to play with. I have some theories about what's going through Fee's head, but Olivia Miles could be a factor there.
Yeah, should be fun to watch.
Yep, good stuff, Jon. Thank you. Please check out the Viking Update Show with Jon as well, and we'll talk to you soon.